It's important to show people, yes, Black people will come to the theater when they want to see something that interests them. So let's give them something that's interesting. Let's give them something that's meaningful.
I say let's blow it up and do it a different way. And let's think outside of the box. And I think as Black people, we've always had to think outside of the box.
I'm really excited to talk to my friends and my colleagues about what it's like to produce theater, in particular, what it's like to produce Broadway theater.
Les Coney, Mathew Knowles, Vanessa Williams, LaChanze, who's amazing and demystifying producing.
It's just very important to me that when I leave this planet, I will have left the planet with opening the door, holding that door open with two arms for youngsters to come through.
I can't wait to go out and produce your next best show.
Welcome to Black Theater United's Business of Show. I'm Liz Curtis, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to Wild Geese Gallery, where we're a multimedia space for all kinds of artists. And I want to give a shout out to Gail Gomez, who has hung all the art in this space for this event, which we're thrilled about. But now I'd like to turn it over to my producing partners and friends, starting with our moderator, Tonya Lewis-Lee.
Thank you, Liz. Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight to Black Theater United's The Business of Show series. Tonight we are talking about producing. This is Producing 101. I'm really excited. I am a new Broadway producer, new theatrical producer, and we're here with with my producing partners, Liz Curtis, who you just met, Vanessa Williams, who we're getting the behind the scenes. Mathew, so Vanessa, as you all know, is in London, starring in The Devil Wears Prada. We have Mathew Knowles zooming in from Laguna Beach, California. My other producing partner to my left, Lester Coney, who's in from Chicago. And while LaChanze is not a producing partner of mine yet, I think you all know LaChanze, and I just have to shout out that she has an amazing show at Classic Stage. Her directorial debut, I suggest you all check it out. So, like I said, I'm a new producer. I'm going to be moderating this panel, but I'll also share a little bit. I've learned a lot. We are together produced A Wonderful World, the Louis Armstrong musical. And, a lot of people have asked me to produce because I am a film and TV producer. People have asked me to produce Broadway in the past, and I've always said no because it seems like a very difficult business. I mean, producing is producing, but what makes theater difficult to me is that you have to get butts and seats every night. And that seems like a big challenge. But I was inspired to go into theater because when Liz and Vanessa introduced the show to me and I got a chance to see the rehearsal, not only did I see the amazing talent that was going to be on that stage, from the music to the dancing to the acting to the book, but I also felt it was saying something, and that's what's important to me, like what the work is saying. Are we educating? Are we entertaining and inspiring people? So that's why I got on board. So I'm going to turn it over to our panelists tonight and ask them each what inspired them and why did they get involved in theater. And maybe I'll start with you, LaChanze.
Of course. Well, theater, I'll start by saying, hello, everyone. Theater is my first love, always has been, ever since I discovered that it existed by watching those commercials in the mornings when we moved from the South to Connecticut. Those Broadway commercials that come on typically around breakfast time. And so I'd be watching the commercials and I got immersed into theater. So ever since then, I've been a huge theater advocate. I've been in the industry over 40 years and I love it. But something started changing for me when, I knew exactly the moment when I decided that I wanted to produce. I saw a play at the International Black Theater Festival. I was down there just checking out the festival, which is amazing. If you've never gone to the International Black Theater Festival, please go down. And I saw a play that I thought was really hilarious and beautiful and funny and exciting, and I knew it would never get produced. And so I went up to the writer and I asked her for the option, didn't even know what I was asking for but I knew that's what you get when a writer gives you their work to potentially market it. So she gave me the option for 3 years, and I worked hard to get it produced. It did not get it done. And then in 2015, I had a little money in my pocket. So I produced my own reading of it and invited some great actors to come in and do it. Still, no one bit to produce it on Broadway. Fast forward the pandemic in 2019, and we're all sitting around. 2020, we're all trying to decide what we're going to do. And I said, I'm going to really activate my theater producing career. So I had several meetings with a lead producer who goes by the name of David Stone. He produced Wicked on Broadway and a few other great musicals. And I basically sat by his chair, sat next to him by his pool. Yeah, he has a pool. I sat by his pool, and because we had to be outside, and he taught me all the basics on producing 101. And he asked me to be a partner, and I was scared to death because I didn't know what that meant. But I also knew that I have a passion for seeing more diversity in audiences. And having been on so many Broadway stages, when I look out, I would rarely see diverse audience participants. And I found that to be disturbing because everyone on the stage oftentimes were diverse. So I thought that there was some way, we have to find a way for people to know that they belong in the theatrical space, and that we do theater that is inclusive and exciting and youthful and, dare I say, cool. You know, Broadway needed to get that cool factor again. And so I started working with David and learned a lot. And I also learned that I know a lot more than I knew that I knew because I've been in theater for so long. And I became somewhat of a creative producer. And I love that because it gave me, I had a voice in the marketing. I had to say in where the tickets are being sold. I had to say in what communities, what neighborhoods we're going out to. I even had to say in font and color of the marketing materials, a lot of input that I was given in addition to raising money. Let's not forget, that's number one. But in addition to doing that, and I just found that was a great place where my business mind and my creative mind merged. And producing just seemed to be a natural fit, and I've been loving it ever since.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, LaChanze. Maybe I'll just keep ladies first. No, she's not there. So maybe I'll turn to Mathew in Laguna Beach. Why don't you talk to us? I mean, we all know, I think everybody here knows that you got Beyonce and Solange and other artists launched and started, but tell us about how you got into theater.
Well, actually, it was Michelle Williams. In 2002, I came up with this idea that each one of the ladies would pick their passion outside of Destiny's Child. And Michelle Williams' passion, coming from the church, she loved gospel music, but she also loved theater. So we were fortunate, very grateful to get Michelle on AIDA back, I think it was 2002. Kind of blew everybody's mind out of nowhere. And then she went on to do Chicago. She is actually on Broadway right now. Most people don't know this story. And each one of the ladies finding their own personal passion. As a manager, I've been a producer, executive producer for 30-odd years. And so an opportunity came of this collective, which I am very proud to be a part of. And here I am. My wife, Gina Avery Knowles, worked with Vanessa. Les and I won the championship ring as one of the minority owners of Chicago Sky. I didn't know Gina and Tonya were such good friends in New York back in the day, but there was a collective and brought us all together. So I'm very proud, and Liz, can't leave Liz out. So I'm very proud to be here today. And Vanessa, you just look beautiful.
She is indeed. Thank you, Mathew. And Vanessa, I asked the same question to you. I mean, I think many of us know of you in Broadway, but what inspires you to get into producing in particular?
Well, first of all, I have to apologize for being live backstage because when we first set this up, we had no daylight savings time, so I thought I'd have time to take off my makeup, set up my stuff back at the apartment, but Liz has literally just got off the stage, so pardon the chaos. and welcome everybody. And I'll have to start off with LaChanze. LaChanze was my inspiration. I watched her not deal, but I watched her collaboration with David. But also it was a combination of watching her and seeing her ace it and do it so brilliantly, but also the frustration and solution based. You know, a lot of us are mothers, and it's how do we fix this problem? And that's how our minds are like, what do we need to do to fix this problem, to solve this? What is it? Audience development? Is it marketing? Is it casting? Is it money? So that's where my head is now, at 60 plus years old, having worked behind the scenes, having worked on stage, but also having tremendous friends that have made such incredible efforts in their careers. So I have to give it to LaChanze because, you know, I watched her do it brilliantly, and she was I guess my mentor, even though you didn't know it, but she killed it.
I love that. I love that, and I love that you just defined what producing is. What's the problem? Solve the problem. There's a problem, you have to solve a problem. That's what producers do. Les, you are someone who comes out of the business world, but clearly you have a love of theater. Can you talk to us about how you developed your love of theater?
Yeah, so I grew up, thank you, I grew up in North Philly, and I saw my very first play once I graduated from college. So I didn't grow up with experiencing the opportunities to go to a lot of theater. But one of my clients had invited me, Peter Bino and his wife Linda, invited me to their home for a cocktail party. I had no clue that it was about theater, but when I got there, the reason why they had this dinner party was in honor of August Wilson, who was in town. And so that was the first time I met August, but more importantly, I'm embarrassed to say, I'd never even heard of August Wilson at that point. Well, fast forward, while I was at the dinner party, I got a chance to meet some folks from the Goodman Theater, and then they approached me about joining the board. And after a few series of meetings and then going to a few of their productions, I ended up joining the board of the Goodman Theater. And I was also excited to do it at that time because my daughter Chanel was in a theater program at Princeton, and I thought this would give us me opportunity to be more involved in what she was doing as well. So that's really how I got involved with theater. And in terms of our collective that each of us been talking about, that we just formed, I got involved through Vanessa. Vanessa had reached out to me and suggested that I get involved with the recent play, Another World, here on Broadway, and here we are today as a result of that.
Love it. Thank you, Les. Now, what I love is, you know, obviously LaChanze and Vanessa are actors, and they come out of the world of theater to an extent. I want to ask Mathew and Les, and I'll ask you guys too, you know, what about your background outside of theater has really influenced you as a producer? Now, you know, I'm a lawyer by trade. I practiced law for a few years, and then I turned to a creative life. I started writing. That's how I sort of worked my way into my creative life. I started writing. I ended up writing children's books. And then I started producing. I was working at Nickelodeon. I basically started a career over again. Started making very small interstitials so I could learn what producing really was, and then have grown from there. And what I know is that producing a small interstitial is basically the same thing as producing a larger movie. Producing is producing. The budgets get bigger, but you're still doing the same thing. And I will say that my legal background, I think, does help me in some way. But there are so many ways into producing. There's no one path. And so Mathew, I guess I'll turn it to you and ask you, how do you think your experience in your life before, well, you've been doing this a long time now, but how do you think your experience in your life really impacts your producing?
Yes, I'm the oldest of the collective.
I wasn't trying to say that, but.
I think you slipped that in. But no, honestly, the 35 years of experience in entertainment, music, and movies, it all is the same. Vanessa said it best, securing funding, negotiating contracts, managing the production budget, assembling the right creative team. Sometimes merchandise is involved, but equally important is the marketing part and the promotions and the press. And understanding that marketing is not a step, that marketing is the vehicle we use to tell our story. We do a lot of that in musical and plays, but we have to start with market development and what differentiates us, our product from the next. And without a brand development, you don't have an identity. And without an identity, you have nothing to market. And when you have nothing to market, you might as well close your doors and quit. So you have to have that differentiating factor. And that's what I've been able to learn, in the clothing industry, in the music industry. It really fundamentally, it works the same way.
Wonderful. And I would ask the same thing of you, Les. You come out of the financial world. How does that impact your producing?
Yeah, so for me, when I first got involved with I'll use the Goodman Theater as an example. My primary interest was how do I support our community and how do I bring people together. What I have learned through theater is the one area where I feel people it's a safe place. Unlike sports, unlike politics, even unlike business, is the one place where you can come as you are. You can actually, which is why I didn't wear a suit today. You can come as you are. Regardless of your race, your age, your income, and you can be included. And so for me, that was my main interest. I don't have the creative side. I wanted to be a part more of, I hate to call it the business side, but at the end of the day, you got to raise money to produce plays. And so that's what excited me, was how could I help raise money to produce plays, particularly plays that would not normally get produced? And then how do I encourage and be a positive leader on behalf of the younger, particularly younger African American community, to get them involved in theater?
Yeah. I love that you said that, because I think the other thing that people don't realize is it is about leadership.
Yes.
And it's not just about doing, it's about how you inspire as a producer, how you inspire everyone who's working, as a part of the collective. And you are the leader, and you set the tone for how things are going to go and how people feel and how the job is run. And that's what leadership really is. LaChanze, what about, how does your career as an actor, and now you are in this producer seat that has inspired all of us, yes, Vanessa too, but all of us, and you've now moved into the director's chair too. So how has your experience as an actor impacted you as a producer?
Thank you. I find that having been an actor, it really gave me the insider track to what's happening, what producing theater really needs. And so I'm a huge advocate for diversity, inclusion, and belonging. It's just very important to me that I see, as I mentioned in my previous answer, that I see those on the stage and the audience as well. So my acting gave me a bird's eye view to if a show is good and if a show is bad. You read a lot of scripts, you work with a lot of directors, you work with a lot of designers, and while we may have some shows that I've been in that I absolutely love, I've also been in some that I did not love at all. And but they were both learning experiences for me. So I learned what I like and what I don't like. I also paid a lot of attention to audiences' reactions to things as well, because oftentimes we look out into the audience, and because of the prices sometimes, but traditionally in the past, I think we're getting a little bit better at that in some cases. I can't speak for what's on Broadway today, but in most cases, we try to find ways to make theater more affordable. And I wanted to be a part of that that conversation, because as an actor, I really had a hard time doing a show about a famous Black icon and then the audience leaving the theater saying, oh, I've never heard of them, or who is that, and how can I learn more? And it just would, it would really inspire me to want to be a part of producing shows that people get, that other people that we all can relate to, and I can look out and see a diverse audience and see that everyone's appreciating it. So my acting gave me the inside track, but it's been very useful in what I select to produce, how I selected my creative teams, and what I think people are currently looking to see on stage, like looking to see and hear on stage.
Now, Vanessa, you sort of answered that question a little bit. You talked about being a mother and how, and you're so right on how that sort of has an impact. And I'm curious about your acting as well, and your singing and your career in general, how that impacts your producing. And then I would also ask, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to come into producing?
Well, I would agree with LaChanze about having a career and working with people, because it's really all about relationships and the recognition of quality and having a good time in an experience. You want to work with a director that gives you a great product, but also is talented and brings something that you didn't even think was going to happen to the table. Same thing with talent. Same thing when you're trying to, for instance, when we were working on Wonderful World, we knew that the essence is the history of jazz. What better family that is historically jazz from New Orleans are Wynton and Branford Marsalis. Who is better to know authentic music from New Orleans and know that history, and Branford begun as our arranger for authentic music. So it's reaching out to people that you know are the best, having relationships, or having the courage to create relationships so you can bring them on into your team. But it's about recognizing who's going to give you a great product and organically fitting it into whatever world you're trying to create with a project or so. So to fall back on. And I've also been able to, I produced a TV movie of a week that I was in, and I've done, an indie film. But again, it's working with people that you know are going to give you a great product. And in terms of stepping into the world of producing, it's being brave. Again, looking at who's in your world and having, I'm so sorry, there's, and having, for instance, I met Les. We sat together at a Harlem Junior Tennis event. We chatted about things. The next night, we sat next to each other, or I saw him at the Whitney event. And we started discussing theater. So I knew that he loved youth, loved giving back to the community, and then also loved art. So kind of ticked all the boxes, but also he was great person to talk and discuss things. And I immediately felt, this is somebody that I want to be in business with. I don't know what, but I want to do business with him. And from there, we invited him to our BTU gala, which he was lovely to participate in. And when we were talking about doing our collective, I knew that Les had the wherewithal in with his Goodman relationship, and also a love for theater. So it was organic. It felt great. And that's what you have to do as a producer. You look at the whole picture and say, how can I amass this giant puzzle to make a great product?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Absolutely. And I witnessed you do that with A Wonderful World. I mean, to your point, you did. You brought on Branford. You're like, we need authentic music. You reached out to me. You got to know Les. I mean, and I think, Mathew, you said it at the beginning, relationships. You talked about how we all kind of knew each other. And I feel like, what I'm hearing you say, Vanessa, is really cultivate your relationships. because you always come back to those people. I mean, for me with A Wonderful World too, like I knew Branford, obviously I knew you, I knew Liz. That got me into the room to actually see what I might be involved in. So I think that's really great advice. Mathew, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to break into producing theater?
Well, relatively new at this. This is my second time. I do know that for me, it's about, and again, Vanessa said this, it's about, if music is having a great song, it starts right there. And I think in theater, it's about having a great story. And it starts, that's where it starts. What I have learned about this particular event, I mean, this musical that we all engaged in, is that I wish that we had started at the very, very beginning of it. And that would be that one piece of advice. Don't go into it and when it's halfway there. You want to be at the very, very beginning of the decision making. Those critical decisions that we talked about that have to be made. And you want to be in that room when those decisions are being made.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, and again, to your point earlier about marketing, I think sometimes marketing gets thought of as an afterthought. And to your point, you got to think about it at the beginning. And sometimes, you know, as you're doing the creative, I think people, because it's hard to get a show made, set up in the first place. So people are so focused on that they forget about the marketing. And so I really just want to come back and highlight that you mentioned that earlier, because if you get on at the beginning, you can be doing the creative and the marketing in tandem, and then you're in a better position. Les, what kind of advice? I mean, now you've been at Goodman, you've been started Broadway. What advice would you give someone starting out?
Well, before I give you the advice, I just want to add Vanessa left one important piece out when we were talking. I did ask her to dinner, and she shot me down for that. So she neglected to add that piece. She thought I was such a great guy, but not that great. But what I wanted to mention real quickly is, when you hear us talk about theater, you have non-for-profit theater. So when you hear me mention the Goodman, Steppenwolf, Looking Glass, these are all non-for-profit theaters. And then when you hear us talking about our collective on Broadway, that's for-profit. And I wanted to make sure I distinguished the two, because with the Goodman, our primary resource of raising capital is through corporations. So for instance, if we had a Black play on stage, we could go to Boeing Corporation through their diversity manager and say, look, we have this African American play. Do you have any dollars to support it? Whereas on Broadway, you don't necessarily go, I don't want to speak for every play, but you don't necessarily go to corporations, you go to individuals and family office, and to try to raise the capital. And the people who give you money, they want something, they want the hope, the goal is, as Matthews mentioned earlier, is to walk away with a profit, or at least get their money back. With the non-for-profit, when you give your money, you don't expect anything back. And as a matter of fact, you don't get anything back. So I just wanted to make sure that I distinguish the two. The last point I make real quickly, whatever you get involved in, you want to make sure that you're bringing something to the table before you can really have an impact. And so one of the things I tried to do at the Goodman Theater, again, raising money was a big part of it. I tried to make sure that I could raise money as quickly as I could, so that way when I had suggestions about, hey, we should have more Black actors, or we should have more Black plays produced, then people would listen, because you're now actually bringing something to the table, versus getting involved and day one saying, we want more Black actors, or we want more Black plays, and you haven't done anything. So you want to be able to make sure that you try to build something with whatever organization you're in, and I think you will hear your message heard a lot quicker. So,
You know, it's interesting, LaChanze, earlier you mentioned that you started with David Stone, which sounds like an amazing way to begin. I mean, you went to the master. What advice would you give young people to get started?
I would say, again, your relationships, as we've all been stating, is very important. But also, if there's someone that you really, someone whose work you admire, or an artist or an icon or anything that you really feel passionate about, find someone to collaborate with that may be maybe further along in this than you are, or filling the gap that you may not have. Like, for instance, when I first started, I knew that I wanted to produce. I learned from David Stone what the actual nuts and bolts are of producing and what the traps could be. But then I also learned that you have to have a part, like someone next to you that you can bounce ideas off of. It's very important to build your circle, your net worth, not only your net worth, but your
that too.
that too. But your social circles and your professional circles, make sure that you keep those relationships going, because there will come a time when you'll need a David Stone to advise you or to maybe show you how to raise the money, because raising money is not easy. And particularly when you are a new producer, you're asking someone for a large amount of money, and one of the first questions will be, well, how do you know if I'll get this back? And I oftentimes tell there are three types of investors out there. There are the investors, and you can probably speak to this, Les. They're the investors that don't expect their money back.
Right.
There are investors that say, okay, but can I come to the opening night party? If they can invite it to all the fancy events. Right. And then there are those investors who have the disposable income, and they just want to be a part of supporting theater. Mm-hmm. But the ones that you always have to know who you're speaking to. Because if you're speaking to a person who does expect their money back, you have to have a certain type of pitch for that person. Mm-hmm. And maybe a project that is a passion project of yours. Maybe it may not have commercial viability. So you have to really be creative with who you ask the money from and what you're asking for. Because it could, let's say if you're on I'll just use a fantastic show like A Wonderful World. It's big, beautiful, splashy, amazing Broadway musical that everyone's going to want to see and be interested in. Those investors, you probably might have an easier time selling to them because of who's involved. But then you see a smaller production of a play that may not have that kind of, let's say, star appeal and all of that. You'll have a tougher time selling it. But there are investors out there who are advocates for theater in a way and they really want to support it. So you have to be mindful of who you're speaking to, what you're asking for, and having your pitch ready before you meet with them.
Mm-hmm. Great.
100%.
And I guess if I were to answer that question, I would say, as I said earlier, if you are not in theater at all, or even if you are but not in the role of producer and you're interested in producing, don't be afraid to start from the very beginning. Like, you may have to start all over, and it can feel kind of rudimentary at first, but it takes time, and you have to learn from the very beginning. And the other thing I'd say too is give yourself a little bit of time, especially for young people. We were just talking earlier about people in their 60s. I mean, I'm not quite. I'm almost there. I'm not denying it. I'm almost there.
I am.
But I don't know Mathew's age, but I've been talking to Vanessa, Les, and LaChanze today about just hitting that stride in your 60s and really being able to do the work, so that earlier in your life you're learning. You're really learning. You're getting your stride with it, so that by the time you get to a certain point, perhaps in your 60s, you're able to hit it and really be doing your thing. And that, to me, is really exciting. It takes baby steps. And sometimes it feels like you're moving forward, and sometimes it feels like you're moving backwards. But as long as you're still working, you are moving forward. And you will get to where you want to go. You just have to have patience. And I am 25 years in on a 5-year plan. Do you have to go, Vanessa?
I just wanted to add one more thing that was really effective when LaChanze started her production company. she would have these Zooms, or she would send out an email saying, this is a new project I'm thinking about. If you want to hear more, we're going to do a Zoom. So everyone could jump on and hear what she had prepared. This is the outline. This is what this is what our plans are. If you want to be on board, this is what the in is. So it's really effective because you can do a lot of people that way, or you can target it and be very specific, but it allows her to have her whole plan there and collectively kind of figure out who wants to do what. And I thought that was really important that LaChanze did that. You started doing that 5 years ago or so.
That was when I started, because I was trying to. One thing I do know, that if you have an audience, just give me an audience. I can work an audience. But if you have people, you can get more people engaged if you have if you bring them all together and you can talk about what it is. And I have invited Vanessa to several Zooms, and that's how she saw that I was doing this. But then I would also have a cocktail party. I would open a few bottles of wine and have a few friends over, because people like to feel special. They like to, particularly when you're asking for their money. They want to feel connected to you. They want to believe in you, because as beginning producers, people are investing in you. They're really, they're not really. Some are interested in the work, but as new producers, they really want to invest in you and your vision. So again, nurturing those relationships and getting everyone together, whether it be a cocktail hour or a Zoom or a walk around the park or anything, you have to be social and out with people and teach them all about what it is that you want to do. So thanks, Vanessa. And I'll be calling you for that next Zoom.
Well, I mean, and I think that's great. That's sort of a behind the scenes experience as a producer. That's what happens behind the scenes. Anybody else want to share a sort of behind the scenes experience as a producer that works?
Well, I just like to say, to me, it's all about passion. I heard that earlier. I've been in movies, I've been in music, clothing line, now musical, books. It's the business side that I'm passionate about. It's the thing that wakes me up in the morning, makes me excited when I go to bed at night. I know I can define my passion. And bringing that team together and having those relationships that you can pick up the phone and call someone who can help you move the needle. And that's what I encourage, is that each and every one of us get to live our passion. Because when you live your passion, you never work a day in your life. And what combines with passion are work ethics. And those of us that you see are working endlessly, taking flights across the ocean, it's because we love what we do. That I hope I never stop having that fire, that passion. And that's what I say to new people. Find your passion.
I'll jump in real quick and just say, LaChanze brought up a very good point. It reminded me about when I became the chairman of the Goodman Theater. And by the way, when I became the chairman of Goodman Theater, in my mind, that was something that would never happen. It was one of my peers who saw that I could be chair of the theater, and that's how I became chair of the theater. But I didn't see it. So a lot of times, if you surround yourself with the right people, they can bring out of you things that you don't even know you have, that you have in you. And when I became chair, because I did, a lot of times when you don't think you belong in a room, those are the ones who excel a lot of times, because you're on a mission to prove that you belong. And one of the things that I did initially when I became chair, we had 56 fellow trustees on the board. And I did something never done before, which was a little simple thing, which is I went to every trustee, either over lunch, coffee, phone call. We didn't have Zoom back then. And I asked each of them, why are you on this board? What are you trying to accomplish? Because if you can understand why your fellow counterparts are involved, you can do so much more, because now everyone's on the same page.
Yeah. You know, that makes me think, and I feel like LaChanze, you sort of answered this. You know, for you, why is it important to you to produce theater, and why is it crucial for Black people to be producers on Broadway?
Yes, I did answer a little bit of that, but I'll go further into it. I, again, think that Broadway needs to grow and be more inclusive. And if we can have shows on Broadway, revivals of shows on Broadway that have been continuously revived every year, the same types of stories, the same revivals, then we have room to expand and create new revivals. And so a large part of my mission is to advocate on behalf of those who are not in the room and not at the table. And one thing I have now is the experience from doing this, but I also have access and I also have a voice that people don't mind hearing from. So I like to use it. And I think that having that voice and that experience and that exposure gives me an opportunity to stand in the gap for so many that cannot and that have things that they may want to see on stage or opportunities. I am always so touched by people that say, you inspire me. And I think all I'm doing is putting my head down and working and doing what my passion is. To Mathew's point, my passion. I want to make sure that we are in the room and there's a voice, at least have some of our voice in the room so that we can continue to grow this community of theater that we love so much. And not only theater, but the arts, entertainment as a whole. It's just very important to me that when I leave this planet, I will have left the planet with opening the door, holding that door open with two arms for youngsters to come, or some of you young adults to come through.
You're doing it. You're doing it. Vanessa, what about you? Why do you feel it's important for Black people to produce in theater?
I'm at this point tired of hearing excuses. And I've heard Black people don't come to the theater. There is no money to invest. There is no money to develop audience participation. And I think that's part of the work that we've been doing with Black Theater United, just listening to all the excuses and the roadblocks that we've had to deal with, just with the industry in general. So it's important to show people, yes, Black people will come to the theater when they want to see something that interests them. So let's give them something that's interesting. Let's give them something that's meaningful. The ticket prices is not going to reflect any socioeconomic, limit. Let's show people that there are Black dollars to be made and that there are Black audiences that are there. So I think that was one of the reasons why I jumped in on A Wonderful World, but also it was the history portion of it that I felt as a Black person, I need to be in the room. Like LaChanze said, you have to represent when there's nobody else on the panel in the group that is of color, that can speak up and say things that people might not understand or know. So it's important to be in the room when you can make important parts and statements that are necessary and also enrich the, that's kind of the battleground that I felt I needed to immerse myself in this particular project.
Fantastic. Thank you for doing that. How about you, Mathew? What do you think in terms of why it's important for Black people to, first of all, be in theater and particularly produce theater?
Well, I think it's critical. When we think of STEM, now family, they're saying STEAM and adding the arts. It took us a while to add the arts so that our kids can start at a very young age of experiencing and understanding arts. I think it starts there. But I also think that we've been preconditioned. We don't think outside of the box. I'll use the music industry again, but when I came to the music industry, it was all done a certain way. And I kept asking, why do we do it this way? And the answer was, We just do it this way. And I think we have to understand that we have been conditioned to be box in thinkers. And what we do is surround ourselves with other box in thinkers who want to continue to do it the same way. I say, let's blow it up and do it a different way. And let's think outside of the box. And I think as Black people, we've always had to think outside of the box. So I think it's time to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Les, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I was thinking about going back to Chicago again with the Goodman Theater. We were talking about when I got on the board, there was one other African American on the board at the time. So when I got on the board, we were talking about how can we bring more African Americans to the theater. But we looked at every aspect. We looked for African Americans to join the board. We looked for African American donors. We looked for African American actors. I mean, it was the whole bit. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is we created Diversity Night. And what happened, I went to the Goodman Theater and say, look, one of the ways I can bring some African Americans in is I can just give them free tickets. Don't take that the wrong way. That doesn't mean they don't have any money. But I knew that for sure, if they allocated 50 tickets for me, I could then bring in 50 African Americans and sort of reintroduce the theater to them. And I went to one of our restaurant partners and I asked them, could they host, complimentary wine and appetizers before the play. And it was a play done by Regina Taylor. So we partner on that. And the very first year, it was all an investment by the Goodman Theater and our partners. The second year, I had 3 corporations. I remember it like it was yesterday. UPS was one of the local banks, Charter One Bank was another. And a friend, Michael Alter, who's the founder of the Chicago Sky, was the third. Each of them gave me $5,000 apiece. So now we went from zero to $15,000 for the theater. So now the theater's starting to get a little excited about it because now it's just not them giving tickets, they're also selling tickets. Now today, fast forward years later, the Diversity Night brings in $2.1 million into the theater.
Wow.
And that started with just 50 people.
That's amazing, Les.
Yeah.
That's great. I have to say, for me, I think storytelling is of the most important work there is. Like, I think that storytelling is the way that we learn about ourselves as human beings. It's a way that we learn about different cultures. It's the way that we learn about ourselves. And so for me, I think we can tell stories in so many ways, and theater is an important way for us to see ourselves in live action. And so I think it's important that Black people are producing our stories because we'll make sure our stories are told in a way that really represents our experience. We have to be writing them. We have to be directing them, not only starring in them. And really from a producer's perspective, you're sort of overseeing, making sure everything is going really well. Again, thinking about A Wonderful World and how Vanessa, but did Vanessa have to go? She's coming back, by the way, for the Q&A. She just had to get out of the theater because they're locking the doors, but she'll be back. But with A Wonderful World, I mean, again, Vanessa explained it. I mean, they saw the story. She knew creatively they had to get in there and have something to say about how this Black man's life was being produced. She had to make sure the music was right, which is why she went to Branford. I mean, to make sure that the music was right from that perspective. And so I just think it's incredibly important that we are at every place that we can be when it comes to storytelling in general. And for this conversation, obviously, being in that producer's chair is really critical. And I think, it's interesting to hear you, Les, talk about diversity tonight and things like that. I worry about that as we go forward in the future.
Right, exactly.
What we're looking at, and how, and we're going to be more and more dependent on our community for the dollars to actually make things happen. And we're going to have to figure out as a community how we do this thing, and how we do it, not being exclusive of anybody else, because we'll take the money from wherever it comes.
Exactly.
But we're going to have to, as Mathew says, really start thinking out of the box about how we go about doing things.
Can I piggyback on what you just said, which I think is really interesting, because it's also something I wanted to mention, is that you have to also consider the time. We talk about you mentioned the time of right now with things being rolled back and lack in diversity initiatives drying up and everything. I also think it's important to consider not only the time that we're living in, finding the gap of where your story can fit or your project, because it doesn't make sense to do a story today about, let's say, just pick a topic that's anti right now, that no one wants to talk about. Be mindful of whatever, excuse me? Transgender rights? No, I have a personal, transgender rights is an issue these days, but I have a personal mission to be a part of helping to increase that. But I also think it's important to know right now that whatever story you want to tell, make sure that it's timely, because your job is to sell tickets. So you don't want to tell a story that people are not going to want to buy a ticket to right now. You have to be mindful of that. So while I have favorite plays that I love, I know that this just isn't the time. There's no audience for them right now. And no matter how good it is, no matter how important it is, no matter how much it means to you, it means a lot to you and maybe a few people, but not the masses or not everyone that may want to see it. So that's why I do a diversity of stories. I work on quite a few different stories. I'm producing Buena Vista Social Club this year. And because I love, not only do I love the musical, thank you, not only do I love the musical, but I think Latin American artists and musicians and stories have just not had the exposure and the time. And because it's Afro-Cuban, I feel very aligned with it. And so I wanted to jump on board and be a producing partner on that. And because there hasn't been that so far that's been successful, a big successful hit, it might be a good time. You understand? So be mindful of the timing and the story that you're telling, and be thinking ahead. Is this a story that our society will receive right now? It's just something to mention.
So LaChanze has to leave before the Q&A. But she is the president of Black Theater United. So we're going to let her have the final say for the evening.
Yes, I just want to say, first of all, thank you all for attending our Business of Show. We are so excited. I'm here with one of my co-founders, Lisa. Can you stand up, Lisa Donaghue? And our beautiful staff is here as well, and we're so grateful to our staff for all that our staff has done. So grateful. Even our new member back there, we're very grateful. But we also would encourage you to go to our website, join us, become a member. It doesn't cost a thing, but you'll receive our newsletters. You'll be invited to more events like this. This year we are we're very excited to be introducing a huge 2-day, can we talk about it? We can? No. One day. Oh, 1 day, okay.
Why not two?
Well, Lisa Dawn, which one I'll let Lisa Dawn, which one can we talk about? The Design Expo. We're having an amazing Design Expo where we're bringing together some of the top designers in commercial theater, and we're inviting a bunch of young new designers. And the issue that we hear oftentimes is when we're talking about crew and backstage, and a lot of the designers say, well, we don't know where to find young Black lighting designers or sound design mixers. So we're pairing them with some of the top. We're having this opportunity. It's going to be in the summer. It's going to be June 20th. Thank you, Lisa Dawn.
And we're co-producing it with New York Public Library for the Performing Arts at Lincoln Center.
Yes, thank you. We also have our gala, our big gala that happens every year. We're so excited. This is year 5 for us, and we're having our third gala, and it's going to be in September. And we're very excited, so please check out our website for that and a bunch of other fun things that we have. It's all in the program that we have going. So with that, I would just like to say thank you so much for hosting this, for moderating this incredible panel, and for being on the panel with our wonderful, amazing guests, Mathew and Vanessa. Thank you so much for your time. And Vanessa's back. Vanessa's back. So
Thank you, LaChanze. Thank you, LaChanze.
Thank
And we
you.
got you out here on time.
Thank you so much, LaChanze. I'm just going to jump in here to give a shout out not only to you for being an amazing founder and president, but working with the team for Black Theater United to put this together was amazing. Everybody, Morgan, Stephanie, everybody, and I'm so excited for the new events that are going to be happening. So thank you. And I'm going to be handing the mic out for the Q&A, but I'll let Tonya introduce the Q&A.
So we're going to have a Q&A. I will tell you the questions need to be on producing. Any question that's not on producing, you will get shut down and your feelings will get hurt. So I'm just letting you know all that right now. But we're excited for your questions. So please, the floor is open. There you go.
Great. And I'm going to give the first mic here, and then Maria Giacchino, another producer who's helping, can give the second mic for the next question.
Okay, sweet. So thank you guys for being here and just sharing so much of your wisdom about the world of producing. I think LaChanze began answering my question, and so I wanted to extend it to the rest of the panel. How do you know, as a producer, which untold story is what you'll decide to move forward with? I know that LaChanze mentioned, just being considerate of the times and knowing that your story that you're choosing to work on will sell. Is there any other metrics that you guys use to say, you know what, this is something that I want to be a part of this specific story right now, let's go?
I appreciate that question. And I think you've heard us say, so Liz, Vanessa, Mathew, Les, and I have created our collective. So we were first produced together on A Wonderful World, and we've decided we're going to go on and produce together other shows. And this is such a great question because this is what we grapple with. What's the next thing that we're going to do? And so we have very healthy conversations. I think first and foremost, and then I'll let everyone else speak, we want it to be financially viable. It has to be that. I think it feels like, and I don't know that we have said this out loud, but I think the story needs to be focused on African American culture in some way and have some meaning to us in that regard. But beyond that, I think we just have to find something that really resonates with all of us, that we feel very passionate about. And that we feel that we can raise the funds and get people in the theater to see. Vanessa and Mathew, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I agree. I mean, just to refer to LaChanze, who won her first Tony as a producer doing Top Dog Underdog, that had been done 20 years before. And the fact that it was redone with a different cast and still Kenny Leon made it an experience. When you walked in, you heard the music, you saw the American flag draped on stage, and you were like, what era am I in and what am I about to enjoy? So he set up a whole new world, and it was Kenny stepping up, it was LaChanze supporting it, and that was going back to something that worked before, and let's try to redo it. So we were talking about revivals, and so that's one idea. What has worked before? The Wiz, this last season. That was a revival that I saw when I saw the original with Stephanie Mills when I was 12. And that excited me about, I want to do that when I, get older. So that's one aspect of looking at revivals that have worked, but also seeing how can we cast them and make them relevant today. And then it's also looking at new works. Tonya and Liz have a road trip next week. They're going to come and look at something that is really exciting that I heard of people that are in it that said, I've never been in anything like this before. I'm not supposed to tell you what it's about, but let me tell you what it's about. And then, of course, I told my partners what it's about. And we're going to see how interesting and exciting and new it is. And that will give us an opportunity to get in on the ground floor so we can have more of a say in terms of marketing. And if this is something that's really unique and we think it's got to have legs, we can be in on the beginning so we can actually set up a plan and be lead producers as opposed to coming in and trying to solve problems, which is kind of what we dealt with on our last project.
Great. Matthew?
Well, it's good I can see you guys now. Earlier, I couldn't see you.
Oh, no.
But I think it's about knowing strengths and weaknesses, and I think that's what makes the collective really good, is we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. I certainly know mine. I love musicals. I love music. But I also, growing up in the 70s and being that one Black kid in the classroom, in the 50s rather, and being that one kid in the classroom, I love race stories. Those are the two things that I really, truly enjoy listening and today and learning. Actually, today, there's a lot of things happen in race that we just don't know about. So those are the two things for me.
I would echo what everyone has said so far, but I would only add that I enjoy looking at productions for young people. And because I feel, as I look around the room, even like getting more male, what kind of play can we produce that get more males coming out to the theater? That, for me, gets me excited. So if someone came to me with a play tomorrow and said, hey, this is going to be about X, that they would already have my attention right there. So each project is different, and you take it on as they come forward.
Hi, my name is Clarissa Ray. I'm a producer and an actor. And I started my journey into the entertainment space as an actor. So a lot of my network, a lot of my connections are in that sort of creative space. I know directors, designers, those sort of people. So then my question becomes, and I'm glad that we have the panel that we have, how do I then start tapping into other communities, like other investors, business people? How do I start making those sort of connections so that basically we just get money from different places, be creative with the raising the money?
Right. Well, for me, I always encourage people, try to broaden your circle. So if I can be so bold to say, give everyone a homework assignment. If you can, when you have time, whether it's this weekend, next weekend, or whenever you have a few moments, think about who are the top 10 people you have in your network. The only rule is that they know who you are and you have a way of getting a hold of them. And then once you come up with that list, take a look at it. Is it all Black people? Is it all white people? Is it all, it can't be family members. And then as you look at that list, make it your goal to every quarter to make adjustments on that list. And you can only do that by putting yourself out there. I mean, there was a time in my life where I'll guarantee you I put on a tuxedo 7 days a week. I was at every event, shaking hands. Now, fast forward 35, 40 years later, you have a pretty decent network. But that didn't happen overnight. So come up with that list, review that list, and then, work it. Every time you get invited somewhere, I know it's easy to sit on the sofa and watch that new Netflix or whatever channel, but get that second win. That second win, a lot of time pays off.
We have an Instagram question that Veronica is going to read.
Hello, y'all. I don't got my glasses on, so I'm going to stay seated. But we have a few questions from the Instagram Live. If y'all want to say hello to everyone watching on Instagram.
We have two questions. One is, what is your advice to beginner investors in choosing a show and building a path toward producing eventually? And the second question is, how do you determine how much money you need for a project? Regional play, musical, Broadway musical, etc.
Okay, well, I can take a stab at the first one. I mean, I think it goes back to what Mathew said about passion. I think in deciding what you're going to invest in, it has to speak to you. It has to be something that you really that moves you. For me, as I said, I decided to invest in A Wonderful World after having been invited to invest in a lot of other productions that didn't speak to me. I had good friends actually who sent me scripts, and I was like, can we make an adjustment on the script? And they were like, yeah, no, it's already going. I was like, no, it's not for me. I would say, so look at the material and make sure it's something that you care about. Look at the people who are involved. Who's involved? Who are the lead producers? Who are the actors in the show? Who's doing the music? Who else is involved is really important. And be okay knowing that you may lose that money because that is real. And like, I am not someone who invests because I want to give my money away. That is not what I want to be doing. But it happens. And so you have to be able to withstand that and be okay with that and keep moving. And I'll tell you, I think that's a huge barrier for a lot of us to getting in producing, right? And there are different levels that you can get involved in. I mean, some are really high and some are really low. Again, A Wonderful World was a great opportunity for me because it was a very low price point, and it gave me the opportunity to come in on something that I thought was really important and meaningful. And if I lost the money, I mean, the lights will stay on. I don't like losing the money, but it's okay. Anybody else?
I would.
couldn't hear the question. I couldn't hear the question.
Oh, the question was, what advice would you give someone for a first time investing? Is that what it was? And then if you are if you are trying to raise funds for a play, how do you know how much you're raising, whether it's regional, Broadway, musical, that kind of thing?
Vanessa, I'll let you take that.
I would say as a producer, do not be afraid to continue to create and develop. When I came in on Wonderful World, it had already had a production that was done in Miami because that's where it started. Then we did a reading. Then I came in and listened to the reading and I had my notes. Then I wanted to make sure that it was authentic since I was the only Black person in the room. And I said, we need to get somebody who, and of course, our writer was Black as well, but I wanted to make sure that we had an authentic person from where Louis Armstrong grew up. I said, Wendell Pierce. Wendell, New Orleans, he knows all the idioms, he knows the history. Can you come in and watch this reading? Wendell came in and we listened to one of the readings. Wendell had notes. So it was constantly developing so we could show the people, if you've got investors, you can show your partners, this is something that could be a jewel and we will continue to develop it. So I think a lot of people that might never have wanted to produce at all, when you show them a reading and you show them a read through, you show them maybe a stage reading where they can actually see, oh, I can see the potential in this, then it's a lot easier to ask for more money besides just giving somebody a script. So I would always say, don't be afraid to continue to develop. You know, it might cost a few dollars, but continue to develop to show people that, oh, this is worth putting my money into because I can see where the dream will go.
And I think it's about before you invest, and I'm guilty of this, asking the right questions, understanding who the team is, understanding their knowledge of marketing. I think it's critically important before you invest, you know who you're investing with and who's going to manage your investment. And I would say on this particular one, I'm guilty of not doing it.
We have another question right here. You want to stand up?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Z Jones, and I have a quick question, kind of dealing with like financial literacy and mindset. So, where would you suggest, panelists, that we start having conversations around confidence with finding funding, asking for funding, and like financial mindset and literacy? Just questions around cultivating financial confidence for new producers.
I think that's a less question.
Yeah. So first of all, it's a great question. I would say two things. If it's a non-for-profit opportunity, meaning you still have to raise money for non-for-profit theater, you know, corporate is a very good way to have some success. And it could be as simple as, if you're in New York, you can pick 10 corporations, call over, find out whether they have a foundation within that corporation, whether they have a diversity arm within that corporation, and then you approach them about your opportunity. And I think that's one way. In terms of a Broadway production, a for-profit theater, to be real honest with you, you have to not only develop your network, but some of that will come with age. Like, you're not going to be 20 and probably can call 10 people that's going to give you $100,000 for a play. I mean, it's just not. I mean, a lot of the resources that we're using now, we're using because we've been developing these relationships over a period of time. So I would go back to that suggestion I made earlier. Come up with that list. Find out who's on there. Do you know anyone on that list that you could actually approach about investing in a play? That would be my suggestion.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add to that is, you know, maybe if you're interested in a production, maybe you start small. Maybe you start and trip your way through it. Meaning, you know, I think the other question was, how do you figure out how much do you need for a production? I think, you know, you figure out what your budget looks like. What does it cost to put on a show? And you can start with a very small production and figure out a budget for yourself. How much is it going to cost you to pay everybody to make it? And that's how you start learning. You start with, how much does it cost for this production to happen, number one, which tells you how much you need to raise. And then it'll help you figure out how much money you need to actually market your production. So I would say, you know, start small and figure it out. Mathew, Vanessa, do you have anything to add to that?
I'll jump in while they're thinking. I'll jump in real quick. Just, there's smaller theaters throughout New York. Don't get so focused on Broadway. I mean, Broadway is great, but think about all the small. I think in Illinois, I think at one point we had 320 theaters. I would have never guessed 320. So that means there are a lot of very small ones out there. Go to some of them and say, hey, what are some of the hidden charges for you to produce a play? Because those folks will talk to you right away.
Yeah.
Mathew and Vanessa, I didn't mean to cut them off, but I just.
Well, that's very, very, very good point that you made. I'll share a quick story. I worked with T.D. Jakes on Cover Girls, his book, #1 bestseller. We did a tour, and so T.D. Jakes and myself were producers, as well as Clear Channel. We had Kim Fields, who was at her height on, I think she was on Living Single then. And then we had Grammy winner Ann Nesby. And we lost $1.5 million. And for one thing, because Clear Channel was our producing partners, they wanted to have this tour in Clear Channel venues. Now, where are Clear Channel venues located? In the suburbs, 45 minutes to an hour from the inner city, where Black people live. And we, that one thing, T.D. Jakes and I, we were so busy doing other stuff that we missed it. that we were in the wrong location. We needed to be in the inner city, as let's just say it, in a much smaller venue. And my point is that to me, you have to really understand the financial aspect of business. Notice I didn't say musical. I'm just saying business, period. Understanding what a profit and loss statement looks like and how to put it together and how to build a business plan. These are the fundamental things that is relevant for any business.
Yeah, that's great. And don't be afraid of it. I mean, I had a guy, I was producing a film. This guy was a producer on it and with me, and he said, oh, well, you know, I can't read a budget, but I'll make a phone call. And I'm like, but that's not being a producer. A producer needs to understand how the finances run, and the only way to learn it is to know it is to make yourself learn it. And you can't be afraid of it. Don't run away from the numbers. You know, the more you look at it, the more you stumble, trip through it, the more you make mistakes and maybe don't understand, the more you learn.
That's a good point. We learn from failure, don't we?
Absolutely.
How you doing? Thank y'all so much for sharing y'all wisdom. My name is Travis Raber. I'm an actor here, and I am gonna ask a producing question. I know a few of y'all spoke to being the only Black producer in the room. I know Dr. Knowles talked about critical about race stories really being at the center of what he wants to do. And I want to know, because sometimes I'm the only Black actor in the room, how is it being the only Black producer in the room and to say what needs to be said in the most effective way to get the job done? Does that make sense?
Totally. Thank you for your question. Vanessa, do you want to take that because you just spoke to that a little bit?
You have to be brave and just be clear, because some things need to be said. And, you know, I have had to point out, and again, I'll go back to Wonderful World, when somebody doesn't understand the depth and the magnitude of someone's career, and you have to remind a person, particularly our director was not from this country and did not know the history of Louis Armstrong. British guy who didn't grow up with the legacy that we did. Knew a bit, and I said, there's a reason why there is a Louis Armstrong Airport in New Orleans. There's a reason why there's a Louis Airport tennis center when you go to the US Open, because Queens is where he established himself in New York, and he is a legend, and that's the magnitude of what we need to bring on stage. And that was just clear. That was something that I had to say because it was the truth, and I didn't have to worry about hurting feelings, which as you grow older, you realize that sometimes you don't, it's okay to hurt some feelings. Right, Lisa Dawn? It is okay to tell the truth. And we are at a point in our life where we've got to be clear about things. So that being the only Black producer in the room and fighting for specific things to make the story resonate, but also be true, was what I felt was my duty in this particular situation. So you got to be brave in the room. That's all I can say.
Yeah, yeah. I think, and I'll just say this in this room, I think, and to Instagram Live too, I guess. You know, I think often what we find many times, and it's not all white people, but a lot of times white people think they know more than you, no matter who you are, no matter what your experience is, no matter what, it doesn't matter. They think they know more. And as Vanessa said, as we get older, I have learned to take the emotion out of how I talk to people and just be very straightforward, very matter of the fact. This is what it is. And, you know, and you fight the battle you can fight and you leave the one you can't. You do the best you can. But it's important that you're in that room. And it's important that you do speak up when you know it's the right time to speak up. But you can't, okay, George Wolfe said to me, George Wolfe, the director, said to me one time, and I'm going to say it like he said to me. He said, "You're allowed one nigga fit when you're working. And you can't have a lot of them because then they don't hear you anymore. But you can have one good one and let them know that you're just a little crazy and then go on."
Me.
Hi, my name is Larry Lyons. I've met some of you. I had the honor of working on The Wonderful World as part of Biz Chica Media, which is the only Black-owned and woman-led digital firm that's doing work on Broadway. And when you got, give it up for Biz Chica. But when you guys came on board, it was such a breath of fresh air because we were no longer doing Broadway as usual. And I'm really thankful for this forum and you guys sharing and being very candid about your experience on that production. But what I see emerging here is a new best practice kind of in Black Broadway, right? This collective that leverages, its access to resources to have a more powerful voice in those rooms. So I'm interested in hearing, how will those conversations continue? What do you guys have in mind in terms of making all of these best practices available to other folks who want to do what you're doing and protect our stories and bring them to Broadway?
How about you? What do they say? Matthews? I think Matthew for that.
Why have to take that?
He said, why do you have to take it? Tonya called on you.
I think there's a number of things. I couldn't quite hear you as well as I would have liked to.
So I'll repeat it for you, and then I'll answer it a little bit, and then I'll let you come to it, Matthew. He was asking about how are we? It seems like we're creating best practices a little bit as this collective, and how are we developing that and then sharing that with the broader world of Black theater. And I would say that right now we're in the process of figuring out what our best practices are. And it's really wonderful. We have very healthy conversations. We are all different. We all come from different backgrounds professionally. And, we have different ways of seeing things. And so between us, we don't always agree on everything, but we talk it out and we're working it out and figuring out exactly what those best practices are. And I think the more we work together, the more we'll share. But I think the key here is that we know this is important work. We take it very seriously, and it's important that the work be excellent, but that's not enough. The work has to also be financially successful. And that's what we are really working to make happen. And we need to lead in a way that leads with love and care for the performers that are working as well. Because I think that's something, to your point about us coming on to this, to A Wonderful World, and DeWitt Fleming was here earlier, who was in A Wonderful World, talked about that, again, the leadership of producers is also about caring for your cast and your crew. You have to take care of your people so that they can do the work that's really out there that everyone sees. And so that's mind, body, and spirit. So I think we lead in that as well.
I think that was a great answer. Could you speak up a little louder when you ask the question? Just a little louder.
That was the last question. So if Matthew has something to add to that, or go ahead, Tonya, whatever you need to do now.
Matthew, did you want to make any final comments?
Well, first of all, thank you for having this moment together. I think the key also is internship. I'm a college professor, and I say it's the most important course at any institution. You're sitting, and how, the question is, well, how I become an intern? How can I find a mentor? It's simple. You just ask. So I encourage some of you today, don't leave that room without asking someone to mentor you. The worst thing they can say is no. And remember, I call it the 3-second rule. You have 3 seconds to sell you. 3 seconds. And if you're uncomfortable, practice being uncomfortable until you become comfortable. So hopefully some people will get out of their comfort zone when this is over with, introduce themselves to someone, ask for someone to maybe mentor them or an internship. I hope some of those things happen. And it's been an honor to be on this panel tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Final words, Vanessa?
Well, I want to thank everybody who has participated, and of course, BTU for doing a wonderful job. I love our programs, and this is just another jewel that we can add to our amazing work that we do. The knowledge is power. The experience in this room right now from all different levels is incredible. So soak it all in. Be courageous, ask questions, make relationships. Don't be afraid to establish relationships. I guess that's what I'm saying, because it all comes out from who you know, and that's what the next thing is going to be. I mean, again, you never know what's going to happen in life. You never know what's going to come up, but if you're willing to be courageous and open yourself up to say, wow, this is exciting, let's do it. There's always helpful people that are there that can come along for the ride with you. So thanks everybody for your knowledge and your passion, and just always continue to learn.
Thank you. Thank you. Les, parting words.
Thank you very much for coming out. And remember, what we're creating, we can't create anything without you. So we need your feedback, excuse me, your suggestions, and we'll be successful if with your participation. So take this journey with us.
Absolutely. And I have to say, it's been such a pleasure. I mean, you can imagine how awesome it is to work with these people and to get this knowledge and just learn so much from every single one of my partners and friends. I'm so grateful that we've been able to have this conversation with you today. Thank you for your wonderful questions, for your attention. Thank you, Black Theater United, for having us and for making this happen. And I hope this isn't the last time we all come together and be in conversation. Go out there, think about your stories, develop your stories. Don't give up. Don't give up. Things take a long time, longer than you think. Things take longer than you think. There's going to be a lot of time that you put into the work where you will not get paid. That's how it is, where you will invest your own money. But if you believe, if you really believe, I believe you can get there with the advice that everybody else has given you here. So thank you all so much for a wonderful evening. Have a great rest of the night. Bye.
Great job, Tonya.